the American dream, and whether it is true or false. For very many days, very many weeks, very many months, very many years, I have been trying to research what is the American dream. Is the American dream first true or is it false? Because I have seen many Africans, many Kenyans, and many people around the world trying to reach the United States by any means possible, even if it involves risking their own lives. In today's video, that is what we are going to discuss. We are going to have some case studies of those people who have succeeded with the American dream and those people who it has not really gone well. And then I'll give you my thoughts by the end of the video. So without further ado, let's jump in.
Some of them may not survive the extreme heat when the sun comes up. Others may be left behind by their smugglers. But crossing the Sahara in search of a better life. These migrants are bound for Europe. There will be no rescue mission. And this is where the long road begins, in the desert of Niger, several days' drive from the Libyan border. They've come from all over West and Central Africa. Off they go in the dead of night, adrift in an ocean of sand, clinging to their dreams.
Well, listen to this. Students, just give up now, because according to this teacher, the American dream is dead.
America has no higher rate of social mobility than medieval England. That's the most difficult part about talking about social mobility, is because it is shattering people's dream. The status of your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren, your great-great-grandchildren is going to be quite closely related to your average status now.
Well, here to debate it, that UC Davis professor, author of The Sun Also Rises, Gregory Clark, and from our sister network, Fox Business Network's Charles Payne. Making Money Man is here for the great debate. So, Professor, thank you for joining us this morning. I'd love to start with you. Why are you crushing our mood here, saying the American dream is dead?
Sadly, the American dream is dead.
Bienvenue à tous. Welcome to Reporters here on France 24. I'm Mark Owen. In this edition, we're focusing on the African communities in the United States. It's a growing number of people. Many are from French-speaking countries like Cameroon, Senegal and Tunisia. And in spite of problems that they're facing, still are most convinced that the US is the place where dreams can be realized. Fanny Allard is our reporter. Joining us now. Fanny, racism clearly a factor in this report.
Yeah, well, I don't know if we can talk about racism, but what's definitely sure is that the relationship between Africans and African Americans is very complex and often full of stereotypes. I'd say, in a way, African Americans envy Africans for knowing who they are and where they come from, because whether they're from Cameroon, as you said, or Ivory Coast or Nigeria, these African immigrants all belong to a country with roots and their own culture. When African Americans are Americans, the African heritage they have comes from their ancestors who were slaves, and that's what's still hard to process today. Their ancestors were forced to come to the US, they've been discriminated in different ways for 400 years, and yet they bear the nationality of a country that sometimes still struggle to acknowledge its history. So I'd say there is a complex of identity, but the mistake, in my opinion, would be to believe that Africans and African Americans have more in common just because they share the same skin color.
So now in this video, also let's have a look at what is the American dream. What is it? Like, what is the denotative meaning of this American dream? So we can see that the American dream was coined in a best-selling book in 1931. It was titled Epic of America by James Truslow Adams. So this is literally the man who came up with the title American Dream. So Adam had described it as that dream of a land in which life should be better and richer and fuller for everyone, with opportunity for each according to the ability of their achievement. This is all a capitalistic idea. The idea of American dream took hold in part due to the number of factors that gave the USA a competitive advantage over other countries. Another point is that home ownership and education were often seen as parts of achieving the American dream. Through the definition of the American dream, though the definition of the American dream had changed to mean different things to different generations, it is undoubtedly part of the nation's ethos. American dream. The belief that anyone, regardless of where they are born into, can attain their own version of success in a society in which upward mobility is possible for everyone. But do you think upward mobility is possible for everyone? I personally don't think that's true. There is this concept called the greener pasture concept or syndrome. Is where you believe that if you go somewhere else, somewhere where you are not currently at, your situation will become better. And once you get there, you discover it's worse. It's worse than where you left. Where you left may have just required you to work hard, to do things differently, and you would have seen a great change.
I'm just reporting the facts that are revealed by history and by examining what happens in America relative to other countries.
Okay, so backed up by, you're saying that someone will not jump that scale. Charles, do you agree? The dream is dead. I mean, students, I assume, are in your class, Professor, to kind of jump ahead and get ahead and really make that dream a reality. Charles, what do you say?
I disagree 1,000%. First of all, historically, to compare America to, something like medieval England is outrageous. The fortunes of mankind, particularly in the West, changed after the first Industrial Revolution. And I got to tell you something, the second one, which transferred America, made America the most preeminent country in the world, it's a miracle that continues to this day. And you could say, okay, look at the top end of it. Let's take Forbes 400. Almost 70% of the people on that list are self-made. In 1984, it was 43%. Look at this year. I can name a couple of names for you. Andre Young, Jan Holmes. Andre Young, better known as Dr. Dre. Born in the poorest town in California. Crime, violence. Today, he's a billionaire, self-made. If you don't like that stat, how about the fact that this year, almost 23 million people quit their jobs because they think that there's upward mobility and they're starting to see it. So you can go from the top to great success stories like this kid, Yam, who came here from Ukraine and now he's worth about $7 billion after selling WhatsApp. Or you can go to regular people who are transitioning from the bottom to the top. But the American dream is alive and well.
Professor, what do you say to that?
Well, you can focus on the outliers if you want, but if you look at the population as a whole, we see tremendous continuity generation after generation in people's status. And so you'll see the Latino population of the United States is poor now, and it's predictable that it'll be poor 200 years from now. If you look at the black population, again, you see tremendous continuity in staying at the bottom of society. Even groups as obscure as people with French surnames in the United States constitute an underclass and have remained at the bottom of the social distribution for the last 100 years or more.
Professor, how do you respond then to, living the American dream is something that I think a lot of people feel as though they are achieving. 66%, according to a recent study, own a home. 78% have a good education, they believe. 74% have a decent job. 81% feel as though they're giving their children a better life than they had. How do you respond to that?
It's absolutely the case that America is a relatively rich society, though there are plenty of other European societies that are also very rich. But I think an important thing for people is what their relative social position is. And the news there is that it's very hard for groups in society to change their relative social mobility, except in a very large number of generations.
Sure. Charles, do you believe that you're an outlier with your success, or do you believe you're like everyone else, so you're just trying to make it work and making it better than the generation before us could with whatever they had?
Yeah, I don't believe I'm an outlier per se, but I will say those groups that the professor talked about, the irony here is that they're being held back more than anything else by this giant welfare system that actually encourages them to stay at the bottom. And it's a really frightening thing, because if the American dream is fading, it's because of progressive policies that make things like the professor's college extraordinarily expensive to go to and encourages people to stay at the bottom of the rung. That's what's the only problem we've had in this country right now.
Final word, Professor?
It turns out government policies don't seem to have any effect on the rate of social mobility. That's why, as I say, medieval England had rates of social mobility just as high as those in modern America.
Well, modern America is certainly thankful for this great debate today on the American Dream, Professor.
The devil is always in the details. Read the details. Read between the lines. You'll always find truth, and truth will always be there. Because if you remove the impossible, whatever you are left with, however improbable, that is always the truth. Yeah, the target is the truth. And this gentleman is telling Africans, is telling everyone around the world who wants to come to the United States of America, that it's not as easy as they think it is. In America, we have poor people. We have people sleeping on the streets. You've seen those videos. We have people begging along the streets of those big US cities. It's only that the media does not show us this thing. The mainstream media does not show us this thing. It is through YouTube videos that we are able to find realities of what's happening there. Without these videos of individual YouTubers, we would have not seen this.
My father is probably rolling over in his grave, wondering why I paid for all those studies to end up as a cab driver. I didn't have anything. I didn't speak any English before coming here.
Back in Benin, she was an executive in a communications firm. Now she drives between 12 and 14 hours a day, 25 rides on average between DC, Virginia, and Maryland.
Hello.
Hey. Hello.
That day, she's taking her clients near the U.S. Capitol.
Where are you from?
Originally, a tiny country in West Africa called Benin. Have you ever heard about Benin?
Yes, I love geography.
Oh, wow,
next to Congo.
Exactly.
Like living in D.C.?
I don't live in D.C. D.C. is so expensive. I couldn't afford D.C. I live in Maryland. And can I say that I like it? It's hot.
Depending on how much she works, Asanteko makes between $1,000 and $1,500 a week. A significant income, but one that barely pays the bills around Washington. She isn't able to save and sometimes has to ask her mother to send money from Benin.
It's a lot of money, but with the cost of living here, it's not much. Rent alone is $2,000. Imagine, $2,000 is 1 million CFA francs. That's a palace in Benin. When you're in Africa, you think the US is an El Dorado, but that's not exactly how it is.
Not all African immigrants share her disappointment. Every year, thousands leave the African continent for their shot at the American dream.
How many cases do you have?
Adnan Kebayer is Tunisian, born in Bizerte, the northernmost city in Africa. At the age of 24, he decided to try his luck in America. Now 48, he's the manager of the upscale Georgetown Club in Washington. About 20,000 Africans come to the U.S. every year through the Green Card Lottery, a system created by President Ronald Reagan in the 80s that allows winners to live and work in the U.S. legally. That's how Edwin Guashifozo moved to the U.S. from Cameroon 5 years ago.
When I got in here, I said to myself, this is a new journey.
To be eligible, applicants must have completed high school and come from a country with a low immigration rate to the U.S. It took Edwin Guashifozo 4 attempts to win the lottery.
I prepared all that I needed to prepare, and among the documents I had to prepare was some medical tests. Then I was ready for the interview at Yaoundé at the United States Embassy. I was successful. They congratulated me and said, welcome to the USA.
The 26-year-old just completed his degree in IT from the University of Maryland, which he hopes will open new doors.
I am very proud of what I have achieved so far, and it's thanks to the USA as well, who made it possible for me to achieve all that I am capable of achieving.
America gave me freedom, happiness, everything. It gave me a family. Didn't think I'd have a blonde with me.
Yeah, there you go.
That was also my dream, having a blonde.
This group of 13 Cameroonians are getting ready for the next step in their journey.
We left Cameroon because of war. That's why we're running away.
Paul says he's a teacher who joined anti-government protests in Cameroon. He and his friends say they're fleeing a conflict back home, which has already displaced over 500,000 people. They've asked us to hide their identities to protect their families.
Cameroonian army go into the village, they shoot people randomly. They have killed my brothers, unarmed young guys. They see any person, they shoot.
Paul and his friends are hoping to seek asylum in the US. But to get there, they're taking an extraordinary journey. First, they took connecting flights from West Africa to Ecuador, a country with some of the most relaxed visa laws in the world. From there, they took buses to get to northern Colombia. But now they've quite literally reached the end of the road. In order to get to the next country, Panama, they'll have to cross the notorious Darien Gap. It's a 100-mile stretch of dense swamp and jungle, with no roads and no rules. Crossing it on foot is something that only the brave or the desperate attempt.
Yes, I know so many of Africans are so excited, so happy when they hear the name America. Yes, America equals to opportunity. But what if I told you that the American dream is fake and destructive? Just as you've heard from the subjects themselves, American dream can be fake and false. You know, many people think that the American dream is just for Africans. No, it does not apply to African countries. We have many other countries outside America which are subject to this idea of American dream. We've seen many people risk their lives. We've seen many people do what I think is insane. People would even sell their own lands here in Kenya. I'm saying what I've seen, so I'll speak for Kenya. People have sold their lands in order for them to find an opportunity in USA. What we forget is that not everyone succeeds in moving to the USA and making it. And you can see we have people like a Chinese woman in this specific website. She's saying that the American dream is fake and destructive. And she continues to say that the American dream is the idea that anyone can make it in this country of USA, with the classic imagery of gazing upon the Statue of Liberty for the first time. There is this international narrative that America is where you find your rags and riches story, that if you work just hard enough, you will build your dream life. The US has one of the worst mobility rates in the first world countries, behind countries considered more socialist, such as France and England. Those looking to achieve the American dream are more likely to achieve it somewhere other than America. Yeah, it's the idea that you can always make it even outside America. We've seen Africans, we've seen Aliko Dangote, we've seen even you people from USA making it in Africa and they wouldn't make it there. So the American dream is just a hoax. It's false. It's a doctrination. It's not an education it's not an educative information that if you move there, you succeed. No. No, the idea of American dream was brought about by the colonialists and the slave masters. They told us, or they made us aware that good things came from the other side, and if we wanted to achieve being like them, we had to stay in their own country and live our own country. The time we were living our own country is the time they were finding a way to come into our own country and loot us. You see, it's a strategic idea they had in mind. You go there and we come here and we steal from you. So if the American dream is true, why are African Americans leaving America? Why are they leaving USA? Why are they moving to Africa? This is something that should tell you something is indeed wrong somewhere. You who is thinking that you need to move to Africa, you need to move to USA to make it. Sometimes the worst is waiting for you out there. The USA might not be really opening to you. It might not welcome you very well. We've seen from this short documentary from the BBC and France 24 that some of these African Americans made it and they had a good life in the USA, while some didn't really achieve that. Some were met with disappointment. With the lady in the first video, she was working in a bank, a financial institution in the Benin Republic, a country in West Africa. It borders Nigeria. She was working in a very lucrative position. But then she was hit by this bag, the bag of American dream. She decided, I think I'm gonna pack my bags. This money from the bank is not enough. I'ma leave Benin, I'ma go to USA. Yes, she went to the USA. Going was successful, but living and thriving was hard. Now she's living from pocket to mouth, pocket to mouth, pocket to mouth. And eventually, she will not be buried there. She'll be buried in Benin. I am taking the other tone of saying the American dream is a false narrative. And I have reasons why I say this. The first one is we have a very high economic disparity in the United States of America. So if you want to realize this, you have to first understand and have the knowledge that America is a multiracial country. One of the most multiracial countries in America, in the whole world, is America. And there's a very huge gap of economic disparity. There's no economic equality in the United States of America. And this is because the growing wealth gap suggests that not everyone has an equal opportunity to succeed in the United States of America. One thing you need to know is that, remember, we have the black people who came there through slavery. We have the white people who came from Europe. We have the red Indians who've lived there the longest. They came from Asia and some parts of Polynesia, somewhere in the Pacific. Now, we also have the Chinese, we have the Indians, we have all sorts of people in the United States of America. We also have the Hispanics who came through the Spanish invasion. When the Spanish people, who are also the first people to explore the whole world, came to America, they had some intermarriages and they produced another generation we now call the Hispanics. Now, we don't have economic equality among these groups of people. Among blacks, whites, Indians, the red Indians, the Chinese, there is no economic equality. What makes you think that you as an African would go there and make it just like other people? It's not how it seems. That's what I'm telling you. I'm just showing the negative side. Not the negative side, the reality side, which is negative, of course. So the disparity of income and wealth distribution often means that those born into other lower socioeconomic status have fewer opportunities for upward mobility. If a person who is living there is suffering, we have streets in the United States of America. Those people are rushing to USA. The second one, systemic barriers. Critics point out that systemic barriers such as social discrimination, gender bias, and unequal educational resources create barriers that prevent many from achieving the American dream. The third one is changing economy. The shift from manufacturing to a knowledge-based economy has left many without the necessary skill or education to succeed, challenging the notion that hard work can only lead to success. Changing economy. The USA is really changing. Right now, the US dollar is really crashing. It's very much crashing. The fourth one that I discovered is consumerism. Some believe that the American dream has been co-opted by consumer culture, equating success with material possession rather than personal fulfillment or societal contribution. America is not a socialist republic. America is a capitalistic republic. And I believe you know the ideas and you know how much capitalistic America can be. You know, during the Cold War, we had two countries that were really taking it hard on themselves. We had the Union of Soviet Socialist Republic and we had the USA. Back then, Russia was the biggest part of the USSR. And the USA was pushing the agenda of capitalism. USSR was pushing the agenda of communism. So if there's someone who is really communist, it is USA. And you understand that consumerism is a concept that is highly favored by communism, but not capitalism, according to this, my research. Now, the fifth one is globalization. In a global economy, American workers compete with workers worldwide, which can lead to a job outsourcing and wage suppression, making it harder for some to achieve traditional markers of the American dream. Yes. We even have these American companies going to countries like India and China to find labor. We have Nike. Nike is there in Vietnam. We have Apple. Apple is in China. We have these clothing companies in Southeast Asian countries. What are they doing there? And they're American companies. Fill with your own head. So it is important for you as an African and a non-African to note that while these points suggest challenges of achieving the American dream, some of them may be true, some of them might not be true, but the idea remains one. The evidence remains to be one. We have people who have gone there, some who have succeeded, some who have not succeeded. Now, it's good when you go there with an open mindset. At least, if you insist on going, go there with an open mindset. The mindset that it can either happen on your favor or it cannot happen on your favor. That is what you need to go there with. That sort of mindset is what you need when you go there. Yes. Now, that's EFK original documentaries. If you find value in this video, kindly subscribe to the channel, give it a thumbs up, and share the video. Remember, Africa is way better. East or West, home is the best. See you in the next one. Do subscribe.